Welcome, everybody, to a special Super Bowl edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton. What's shaking, Giants fans and NFL fans alike? It is the big game, so we figured we'd come to you and kind of tease the game. You may have heard that a former Giant might be playing and participating in this week's game. You know, Steve Spagnuolo, hell of a run as defensive coordinator in Kansas City. Obviously, his challenge, stopping Saquon Barkley. If you're a Giants fan, you either are sick of hearing it or you can't say it enough in order to try to bury the current administration at the Giants for allowing Saquon to head down the turnpike to Philly. We will have special guests today as part of the Bounty Super Bowl campaign. Kayvon Thibodeaux and Bobby Okereke, two defensive leaders on this team for the Giants. They are down in New Orleans on Radio Row, and they were kind enough to join us today on All In to talk the Super Bowl a little bit, talk NFL rivalries, and we'll see where that interview goes. My thoughts on Sunday, look, I think it goes beyond Saquon Barkley versus the Kansas City Chiefs, although that will be a major storyline. And I've got a story posting tomorrow morning. Hamish Fenton is a 12-year-old from Rye, New York, and he is a cancer survivor, and he is also continually to fight that battle. And talk to him. If you remember, Saquon's last game was against the Eagles at MetLife Stadium in January of 2024. So that's 13 months ago. And after the game, Hamish, as part of his Make-A-Wish to be a Giant for the day, he was actually a Giant for 3 days. They signed him to a 3-day contract. And he was after the game with Saquon at his locker. I ended up talking to Hamish, myself and another reporter, and we kind of told his story the next day. Well, fast forward to all this time, and Saquon's left his favorite team, the Giants, and come to the Eagles and had this run. So I was able to contact Hamish's family. He's continued to undergo treatment and surgery for the cancer. It is an extremely rare cancer, and he just had his most recent surgery the week before the NFC Championship game. I ended up writing a column after talking to Hamish and his parents about what Saquon being in the Super Bowl means to him, and how there are many layers to the idea of being a Giants fan. And when you have the Eagles and Saquon Barkley in the Super Bowl, what do you do? Well, I try to find a different angle here, and there's no question Giants fans, Eagles fans, any human being would want to root for Hamish Fenton. And that story coming up on NorthJersey.com on Wednesday morning. But make sure you check that out, and we will see how things progress. So Super Bowl, I think bottom line, we know Patrick Mahomes, a three-peat is pretty special. It's never happened in the Super Bowl era. I think it's, again, some irony. You have Andy Reid going against the Eagles for the second time in 3 years in the big game. Andy Reid, who couldn't win the big game, so to speak, in Philadelphia, is now, he can't lose the big game in Kansas City. I mentioned Spags. Obviously, he's a big part of this in terms of where he's at as far as who he is, and really as far as a coordinator goes, one of the greatest of all time. I don't think there's any question that Steve Spagnuolo has left a legacy here. Now, the hard part for the Giants is that Spags was here in 2007, obviously, Super Bowl 42. We all remember that. But then he was also here for the down years of 2015, Tom Coughlin's last year, and how bad that defense was. Came down to personnel. Then you're talking about he replaced Ben McAdoo as an interim head coach in 2017. And now here's Spags, and you'll hear all about Spags this weekend. Can Spags slow down the Eagles' running game, Saquon specifically? I think the flip side of this game is going to be can Kansas City put pressure on the Eagles defense to not allow them to come after Patrick Mahomes? Both teams have question marks on the interior offensive line. Joe Thuney for Kansas City kicks out from guard to tackle. That creates a little bit of a weakness inside. And then the Eagles, obviously, what's happened with Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens at center. There's no Jason Kelce. They performed just fine this year. But when you look at those guys both leaving the game in the NFC Championship game, we'll see how they form that situation. So it's going to be an interesting game. I'm looking forward to it, at least the chess match of Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni. And, everything that's been said about Nick Sirianni, I know he's not very popular in these parts, that's for sure. And I don't care for his personality on the sideline, but you can't argue with the results. Now, obviously, he's taken a team that was built by Howie Roseman and, to some extent, Doug Peterson, and look what he's done. But I think it's 48-20 as far as his career record at this point. So you got to give Sirianni his flowers, at least from that point. I think back to another former Giant, Julian Love, when he said that Sirianni is essentially just driving the car. Sometimes that's a skill when you're a head coach, driving the car and make sure you don't go off the road, make sure you don't run into anything that's in the road, and navigating your pathway to the big game is a big deal. So I know it's not popular, like I said, but Sirianni definitely deserves his flowers. And the flip side of Spags versus the Eagles offense is Vic Fangio, the veteran defensive coordinator for Philly, against Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and that Kansas City offense. So the chess match between Andy Reid and Vic Fangio is going to be very interesting. And it'll be a fun game. So without further ado, we are going to bring in the guys down from New Orleans, Kayvon Thibodeaux and Bobby Okereke.
All right, good.
What's up?
What's up, fellas? How you doing, guys? You doing good?
Man, we're good. We're here at Super Bowl week. We're here with Bounty, our wingman. You can't have football without wings. You can't have wings without Bounty. So I'm partnered up with Bounty. My other wingman, Kayvon. And, we're here having a great week.
Awesome. So give me a feel. How's New Orleans so far? What's the feel down there?
Art? Man, super excited. Just my perception, I've already eaten about 50 wings, so I'm assuming there are about to be millions of wings eaten this week. So make sure you grab your Bounty because there are going to be a lot of messes, a lot of mouths to wipe, a lot of things to do.
I hear you. So tell me about the game itself. The question I've been asked about, we know the Eagles and the Chiefs and everything else. Do you guys feel like you can have rivalries in the NFL? Does it still exist? Because how much has been talked about the Giants and the Eagles and everything else. Have we gotten to a point in the NFL where there really aren't as many hardcore rivalries as the fans think they are?
No, yeah, they're definitely rivalries. I don't want that. I want a great game. I want Saquon to do well, but I definitely don't want the Eagles to win. If both teams could lose, I'd be happy. But we don't see the Chiefs that much, so I don't care if the Chiefs win.
Man. No, I think rivals are still prevalent. You look at the Steelers, you look at the Ravens. I don't think I want to see any Eagle success. I want to see any Cowboy success unless it's one of my really good friends. So those rivalries still run deep.
Kayvon, I know how much you love the Cowboys. You've been getting involved on social media. You looking to single-handedly start start that fire up again between the rivalries in the NFC East?
I think it's tough, right? Because we've been losing, so everybody thinks we're like the little brothers and they can just take shots and say what they want, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. As long as I got 2 feet, 2 hands, and a heart that beats, it's not going to happen.
How much do you guys make a living of blocking out the noise from guys like me, from fans during the year when you're doing your job? How much do you get the sense of people kind of kicking you when you're down as a team, especially when it comes from guys who played in this league, who know what it's like to have the ups and downs and the flows of what your job is like?
Yeah, you feel it, especially, with everything that transpired this year with Hard Knocks, to the guys who left in free agency, the success they had. There were a lot of outside haters, noisemakers, a lot of outside detractors. And for us, it was nothing but motivation. Nothing but motivation and fuel and fire. I think a lot of us are pissed off for greatness. Obviously didn't have the season we wanted to. Didn't win nearly as many games as we needed to. So a lot of us this offseason are pissed off. And we're coming back with that pissed off mindset, work ethic, and plan of action to get this ship turned around.
And I think, when it comes to sports and fandom, and this is my perspective, that's why I talk as much shit as I do. Because regardless if you're LeBron James and you're the greatest player of all, people are still going to say you're not. Regardless of if you're Michael Jordan, you're the greatest player of all, people are still going to say you're not. Like, there's still always going to be other teams or other fans' opinion. So for me as a player, you got to stay strong in who you are and stay, firm in what you believe, or you'll be riding too much of a roller coaster trying to make every fan happy or trying to, please every different fan base or get the respect. I don't care about the respect of a Cowboys fan or Washington Commanders fan or Eagles fan. They'll never give it to me. So all I want is to do for the people who do see, who do fight for us and who do spend their hard-earned money to watch us play, and the people who do, want the best for us. And that's who we, go out there and play for.
Before I ask you, 2 defensive players who know what it's like to play at the highest level. I mean, obviously, you're still shooting for a Super Bowl, wanting to be there. I would imagine, that's obviously the dream. Just in terms of your team this year and moving forward, Bobby, you mentioned it, just the idea of how much it's fueling you for next year. When you see Washington do what they did and turn it around as quickly as they did to get to 1 game before the Super Bowl, is that just guys like me looking at it saying it can give a team hope that struggled and not done what they want? Or can you guys look at that and say, you know what? If it can happen to them last year, why can't it be us this year?
%. It's definitely encouraging, and it serves as motivation. You look how they built that team. They brought in a lot of veterans, from Zach Ertz to a Bobby Wagner to a Frankie Louvu, Eckler, guys who've had experience and played well throughout this league, who might not be at the pinnacle of their athletic career, but are extremely savvy and are competitors and winners. And then you bring in a young quarterback, and you have a good front office around him, Dan Quinn, have a good offensive coordinator around him. And you put him in a situation to succeed, you really get to see him flourish. So,
all right, so obviously we lost Kayvon and Bobby down there at Radio Row in the Convention Center in New Orleans. Want to thank them for being a part of it. Sometimes you got the mercy of the Wi-Fi at the Super Bowl, so a lot of people are pulling from that Wi-Fi. So hopefully we can salvage our master of production, Paul Wood. Our producer can kind of put things together, and hopefully you enjoy at least a little bit of what they said and what they had to say. I thought Kayvon obviously talked about the rivalries, and Bobby as well. It certainly sounds like they're rooting for Saquon, but rooting against the Eagles. And, it's unfortunately the trouble with setting up stuff virtually, you're at the mercy of the Wi-Fi. So I do appreciate those guys for stopping in for a little bit anyway. Apologize for the technical difficulties, and we'll see if we can kind of make it up down the road. So again, thanks to Bounty for having Kayvon and Bobby come on, and we will wrap today's show up. Hopefully you guys enjoy it a little bit. And we'll move on, and we'll see. We will be back if Eli Manning Thursday night gets into the Hall of Fame. We will do a special reaction show sometime Friday, so keep an eye out for that. Again, for Paul Wood, for Kayvon Thibodeaux, and Bobby Okereke, I'm Art Stapleton. Thank you for being all in, and we were all in as well. Appreciate it. Everybody enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll be back whenever news warrants.